What's going on, guys? It's Yahavy St Clair Speaks, and you are now tuned in to the St. Clair Speaks Show. You are now tuned in to the St. Clair Speaks Show.
Welcome back to the St. Clair Speaks Show podcast. I'm your host, Yahavy St Clair, sitting down with another amazing guest. Today we're sitting down with Crystal O'Connor. She is a three-time celebrity-endorsed author. Crystal is the creator of Moxie Entrepreneur, a Moxie Media Solutions with programs for high-ticket mastery. And she's also has been endorsed by Barbara Corcoran from Shark Tank. So, Crystal, please take the mic away. Welcome to the St. Clair Speaks Show podcast. Please give our listeners a 3 to 5 introduction on yourself, your brand, your business, and what brings you onto the show.
I thank you for having me, by the way. I'm honored. And so I have a new program that you didn't even mention called Rich, Fit, and Happy, which is what everybody wants, right, in their life. They want those three things. So over the span of 10 years, when I started Moxie Entrepreneur and until now, I've really wanted to delve into and devote my time to health and wellness being part of success, because it is. And I know that it's maybe talked about, but I wanted to create a program that actually incorporated it within a success driven program.
Nice. Okay. So, I've said this to you right before you jumped on camera, right? I was kind of like reading up a little bit about you. So I want to talk to you. I like to swing back to where it all began, like that aha moment. So can you tell us about your journey from working in corporate and to starting pretty much like your own marketing business online? Like what motivated you to make that transition?
So what motivated me was being able to make the kind of money that I needed with 3 kids in tow. So I had 3 kids as a divorced mom. I had 3 kids under the age of 7 and realized that my education degree wasn't going to help me out much, because I was just going to be essentially giving my paycheck to a daycare. So why would I do that? So I had to really think about what I wanted and how I could actually get where I wanted. So I went to a weekend with Robert Kiyosaki. It was like a weekend that I couldn't even afford. It was like $500. And that is when it all started, because I started thinking differently and I started playing that board game, cash flow, and understanding what passive income actually was. So yes, I did flip a few houses, but what I really wanted was to make passive income in my area of expertise, which was teaching and marketing. So I had actually worked for a TV station. So I worked with small business owners with marketing, and that is what I incorporated and what I started teaching right out of the gate. And funny thing is it wasn't like my first interest. It was just that I knew that it was what I knew. It was like a skill that I had acquired, and I knew people needed it, because you got to make sales in business or you're not going to have a business and you're going to really struggle. So I started doing that to buy myself and afford myself the time of flexibility with my kids, be able to, I really didn't enjoy corporate owning my time, and it didn't give me that freedom and flexibility to go get my kids from daycare and from school, take them to school and pick them up. It was always some kind of time constraint, and it was very stressful. So that is what drove me to start my business. It was flexibility and time.
Crystal, you mentioned something I just want to swing back to. You mentioned skill set. Talk to us about the skill set that you acquired and working on that to get to this point.
So when I worked with small business owners at the TV station, I would teach them marketing, and I didn't even realize that's what I had signed up for. So I was teaching them how marketing actually worked. And that led me to be real, it revealed, I think, to me that small business owners are running businesses without actually knowing what effective marketing is. So, and all marketing is a little different, but essentially the same, in that you've got to have a certain amount of eyeballs that see your message and see you and want to buy from you. Okay. But TV was a little different in that we used to teach that your prospect, your ideal client, needs to see you about 27 times before they take action. So what I was doing was selling them a certain amount of 30-second ads that we would prepare for them. And that's really expensive for small business owners. Not all business owners can afford that. So when if you are okay with me just kind of pivoting from there and segueing into why, another reason why I started was because of the internet. So when I saw what was happening online and you could put a 30-second ad on YouTube for free and not pay thousands of dollars for eyeballs to see it, I thought, oh my God, this is going to change everything. So you've heard the term video killed a radio star. Have you heard that before? Or are you too young? Well, it makes sense, right? So I remember thinking internet is going to kill TV in a way, and it did in a big way. And so it made it more affordable for small business owners to get eyeballs, to get customers, if they understood what to say on video and how to project themselves and how to put together a little 30-second ad or commercial. And then, so I started teaching education-based marketing and teaching how to do a video, how to put together a video that made sense, kind of like a little commercial. And so it morphed into Moxie Entrepreneur, where I would teach all small business owners how to do the data collection too. So like put up an opt-in page, do your little commercial, make a funnel out of it, give them a freebie to build know, like, and trust, and all the little pieces that end up with an automated way of collecting customers and affordable.
Mm. Oh man, Crystal, you brought up really good points there. I want to ask you this: what makes someone a Moxie entrepreneur? What is a Moxie entrepreneur?
Okay, so the term Moxie, actually, someone referred to me as Moxie when I was in sales, when I would hit my sales numbers, and it was an older guy. So it's like an older term. She's Moxie. And so I just liked it. I actually started out with Moxie Mompreneur as a business, and I changed it to entrepreneur. So Moxie Mompreneur, I just liked the alliteration of it, but I didn't think I would be taking real seriously with the word mompreneur. I actually hated it. But I like alliteration. But I know that it takes a certain kind of energy to sell anything, especially yourself. It takes a different kind of energy to, if you're in sales and you're selling a product and they've got all the systems and all you have to do is sell, that takes a certain kind of confidence and energy. It takes a whole nother type of energy to sell something that you created and you don't have the team set up to handle it. So that's another reason why I like the term Moxie. So Moxie means energy. That's the first thing that comes to my mind when I think of the word Moxie. It takes energy and desire and balls. Can I say balls on here?
You can say that. You can say whatever you want, Crystal. You're good.
It takes a certain amount of guts, and then you got to run with the ball when you get the ball. That's another thing that I noticed, that not everybody they can create the funnels, and they can, and I would see this in enough people to mention it. I would see them start their business, and it was like a football player on the field. They get the ball and they don't really have a plan when they get the client. Like they don't necessarily have a goal or an end game. And so therefore they don't really run with the ball because they don't have the confidence. So one of the things that I would teach, because I've seen myself live through this, and that is you don't have to see the whole staircase. And I think it was, who was it that said that?
I've heard this saying, you don't have to, see the whole staircase to take the first step. I don't know who said it, but it's so famous.
It was Martin Luther King.
It was?
It was.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
So I'm sure maybe it's been said in different ways, but he said it. Okay, that's who I remember saying it. So you don't have to see the whole staircase to take the first step, but you also don't have to see the goal to start running with the ball. And so, but you do have to kind of see where you want to be. Like, what is your end goal? And you might not know how you're going to get there, but you definitely need to start moving in that direction. So a perfect example is if you had a client that said to you, or if you did the right marketing and you attracted somebody and they were at a higher level that maybe intimidated you, you weren't necessarily sure if you were going to be able to help them. I say take it and run anyway, and go hire someone to help you with that client. Go figure out a way. So basically say yes before you feel ready to say yes. And that's Moxie as well.
Yeah, it's kind of like like if you're scared, do it anyways. I
It
want
is.
I want to swing back to something that you mentioned a little earlier on. And you said like, oh yeah, I believe what's the internet killed the radio or the internet killed TV. But we're
Video
no
on the radio star.
Yeah, you know what? We're also kind of like seeing this now in the social media era, especially with artificial intelligence. Can you talk to us about that? Because one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about podcasting is because it for me, it starts the conversation, which is one, two, the marketing side, three, love the content, four, it's like coaching too. Like I'm learning, you're dropping gems, I'm taking notes over here. So it's cool. Can you talk to us about that?
About where AI is going in relation to business. We can
Yeah.
take this in a lot of different ways.
Oh, there's a lot of different ways we can take
Okay, so Chat GPT is being used right now for content. I'm going to use that as an example, and that's part of the AI world. So Chat GPT came out in November, and it is a way to you could use Chat GPT to help you with your content and marketing, because one of the things that I saw and knew is that it was the Wild West when the internet came to be. So the Wild West, meaning there were no real rules. Okay. There were a lot of eyeballs. Facebook wasn't making money yet, and they didn't really care. So I actually figured out how to put an opt-in page on my Facebook profile and started collecting emails, potential customers. And I remember when I saw that that was an option, I spent 4 hours on YouTube trying to figure out how to do that with the code. And I finally figured it out, because it takes me that long sometimes. I'm not always technically savvy, but I have that moxie, I have that determination, like I'm gonna figure this out. But it did help me. Then they took that opportunity, they took that option away. Okay. And now Facebook is wanting to be profitable. So that's not an option. And you have to pay for eyeballs now. And in a lot of ways. So with that being said, it's crowded now, whereas it wasn't as crowded then. Now, you've probably heard the reference, content is king. So content is still important. There needs to be a strategy with your content, right? It's time consuming. Not everybody wants to write a book like I did. You can't see my book here. Okay, so this is the first one that I wrote. The second one I'm actually still working on. But I wasn't a natural, I like to write, but I don't know, I wasn't really sure how I was going to write a book myself. So I had to go through the process of learning and realizing that an editor actually does a lot of the weaving of the story. Like they make it interesting. You just throw up on the page a lot of information, a lot of words, and they turn it into this woven tapestry. It's like, it was an amazing process. Okay. So that can be expensive to hire an editor. Not everybody has access to that. I actually had a friend whose husband was an editor. That helped my little situation. So getting back to ChatGPT, how can it help? It can help you with content. It can cut down on time. It can help you understand what writing a really juicy title for something, to attention grabbing title. It can help you with that. It can help. So it basically can cut down on your time. I would never suggest somebody go write a book with ChatGPT or use it for all of your content, because it can actually really put out a lot of boring stuff. I almost said shit on your show. A lot of boring stuff. And the fact that it's crowded now, and the fact that you have to try and you have to put out more content, is a reason to go to ChatGPT and maybe use it and play around with it. But it's not a reason to be really boring. That you don't want to be known for that. So I'm going to suggest, if you're using ChatGPT for your business and content creation, use it to teach you. Use it to get creative. Like put in, and what you do if you haven't used it yet is you just order it. act like it's your assistant and you tell it. You actually give it a, you tell it what persona you want it to have. You don't just say, well, I mean, you can say, give me 5 titles for this interesting podcast for using content on marketing for dentists. And it'll give you some. And that's a good starting point. Then I would suggest, if you do marketing for dentists and you needed that content, then ask it to go deeper. So get to know ChatGPT like they're your assistant, and they can't always read your mind, but you are like massaging it. You're like saying, go a little bit deeper on this topic. I really liked the second title that you gave me. Now make it savvier. Make it what's the word I'm trying to say? Make it Moxier, if it knows what Moxie is. I've never actually done that. I just gave myself that idea. Make it sassier. It does know the term sassy. I've used that before. And then it makes it like a little punchier. So the words are a little in your face, a little catchier. I've had it write rap songs, and I give it to my son as a joke. Here's a rap song about you. So it can be really fun, but it can really help you get more creative. Like, I hadn't thought of that, to use that word. I hadn't thought of using that as a catchier title. It's really great with rhyming. It's really great with alliteration. So there's a lot of ways that you can use it for content. That's what I would suggest. And I think it's the wave of the future, and it's just the beginning of what's going to happen.
It's definitely just the beginning. You highlighted your book. Can you bring it back on screen?
Sure.
Unleash Your Moxie.
Yeah.
What is the takeaway for the listeners in the book and the inspiration behind writing that book?
So the idea of the book was for sales and how to help them start their own business. It ended up being somewhat of a mindset book too, because I realized everything that I was telling them was trying to give them paradigm shifts in certain areas of their life. So one of the subtitle is A Girl's Guide to Becoming Fiercely Bold, Incredibly Happy, and Practically Superhuman. So what I mean by that, and I share some stories in it to help them understand why I use the word superhuman, it is because once I started using certain strategies and manifesting things that I never thought that I could, I realized, why didn't they tell me this a long time ago? Like, why didn't they teach me this in school? Like, I literally just manifested a baby in 3 weeks. Like, that actually happened because I wrote it down and I acted as if, and then I got a phone call, hey, would you want to adopt a baby? That actually happened to me. And I've had other really amazing things like that happen with the use of visualization. Every vision board I've ever made, everything on it shows up. Red Mercedes, that took about a year. I had forgotten that I had put it on there. And so it wasn't until after I bought it that I saw it on my vision board. Think about that. Like, it was in my face, but it wasn't like, I didn't know that it was penetrating. So everything. So then I got more interested in how that works. Visions. The Bible talks about it, for crying out loud. Like, why was I not specifically told how to use some of this in ways that I can understand, right? So that is what I mean when I use the term practically superhuman. You're going to feel superhuman once you get the ball rolling, and it helps you realize you actually are a superpower. You are part of your own, you're like a magnet. So when you realize that, it kind of forces you to go deeper in your mind, your subconscious mind, and start to ask yourself questions. Why am I bitter about this? Why do I hold resentment about that? How do I let it go? And there are so many strategies that can help you do that. But I realized I was writing a book about mindset, and boldness is part of being Moxie. I use the term bold because even though being bold is a relative term, something I do could be considered bold, and I think, no, that's just become my everyday, that's how I am every day. Whereas I might look at a billionaire and go, God, he's so bold. he is thinking the same thing. If I were to refer to him as bold, he'd think, no, this is just how I am. It's all we become used to, and we can literally used to our actions, our level of actions or lack of actions. So we can change the neurology of our brain with repetition. Fascinating stuff. To me, that's fascinating. It's also very exciting, right? Now, you asked about AI, and now I'm all over the place. So I don't know. You gotta pull me in. I'm like a wild horse.
No, no, when someone's flowing, I let them flow. I just started lighting up with you just touching on just visualization, kind of like writing down what you want, claiming what you want. It's just like I'm a firm believer in the universe has my back, and I'm hearing the right message at the right time or meeting the right person at the right time and unleash your moxie. What you said this a little earlier, you kind of went from kind of saying from the whole mompreneur to actual all entrepreneurs. Men could actually unleash their moxie too. And
Yeah.
I'm picking up on the energy, and I'm like, man, like you could apply this not just in business, but also in your personal life. Like, hey, I'm going to achieve this goal of sticking to this diet or working out. And it's like, what you're saying could be applied for so many different things, just not just business. And I'm just sitting here like, damn. I'm like, yeah, I'm liking this.
Yeah, a lot of what is actually in my book isn't. I would say like a quarter of it. I did share some business stories and strategies, but I kind of pretty much have a story as to why I think the way I do from my childhood. Like things come from our childhood in terms of how we see ourselves.
Absolutely.
And so I shared a couple of stories that I had to be bold to share the story too. A good, I lived in my car when I was 18. That was not something that I was proud of, and I was actually ashamed of for a very long time, especially the fact that it was a really old Datsun 210 and it was a brown and it was not attractive. It was like falling apart. I lived in that for almost a month. And when I think back to that, it's like it never leaves me. Like I was telling someone the other day, like I live in Naples, one of the most expensive areas in the country. And I was in a newer shopping area. And I was like looking around, and in front of me was a Merle Norman. It's like a makeup store. And I remember getting a job at a Merle Norman while I was living in my car because I needed to make more money. And so I was working at a shoe store, barely making, if I told you what I made per hour, you would laugh because, I'm from the 80s. Anyway, so I thought I got to make more money, and I quit school. So I share that story in the book that I quit school so that I could sell my books. I lost all that money, by the way, at university. And I used like 40 some dollars to get which probably wasn't the smartest thing, but to get a hotel room because I just wanted a warm bed that night. And a lot of it was, like I had friends that I could spend the night on their couch. You know what? I was mostly in my car out of shame. Shame keeps us in a weird ass place. You will stay there forever if you don't snap out of that one. So I had to really look at that. I don't remember reflecting on it too much back then. It's like hindsight now is what's got me going, wow, I was like hiding in my Datsun 210. And so things have changed for me. But here's the thing. I'm actually grateful that happened when I was so young because I know it'll never happen again. But getting back to my story about the Merle Norman, I ended up getting a job. I want you to picture this because I know you're young and you probably can't imagine this. That we had payphones. You've probably seen them in movies, right?
Yeah.
So we had payphones. I went and found a number on a payphone, and I used that on the application as if that was my phone number, like it was my home phone number. And I would sit by the park bench waiting for the phone to ring because I'd put applications out with this phone number, and I would sit every once in a while at this, and it would ring. I'd be like, hello. And sometimes it wasn't for me, and sometimes it was. And that is how I got that interview. And I ended up getting a job as a sales manager at Merle Norman, being homeless and faking it. I was faking it. And here's why, that might not be impressive to everyone, but here's the thing. What it taught me was even though I had some shame. And even though I was like at my lowest point, and it was really sad when you think about it, when I really think about that, like I have kids in their 20s. There's no way, oh my God, to even think about them being in that position breaks my heart into a million pieces. So I feel sorry for that girl, but at the same time, I'm impressed by that girl because she just kept going anyway, like fake it till you make it type of thing. And I didn't end up working for Merle Norman because after that happened, other opportunities started falling in my lap, and I moved to another city. Within a year, I had not only moved to another city, I had a whole new set of friends, amazing friends. I was working for an insurance company called American Mutual Life in the underwriting department. I had the nicest clothes because I got my little credit card. Like I did get into some trouble with American Express one year because I went a little bit overboard. But that whole like I needed to really like say, okay, uh, I had told myself I will never be in a situation where I don't have nice clothes and a nice place to live, right? But I also noticed I had a problem with buying too many clothes. See, I didn't grow up where my parents bought me a lot of clothes. I was like the poor girl, even though I went to a Catholic school. I think so many people, when they hear that, oh, she went to the private school. I was the poor girl in the private school that other kids gave me money. I wasn't poor. So my mom heard me say that, she'd be freaking out, saying, what? Here's the thing. I don't know why my mother didn't buy me clothes. That's a whole different thing. But I didn't have the clothes that I didn't have Nikes. By the way, I remember calling them Nikes when they first came out, Nikes. But I didn't have Nikes. I didn't wear the name brand things. And I was always looking at others and wondering, like, I wish I could have that, and we must be poor, and blah. Um, it was just that that's not what my parents spent money on. And so I have had, when I started making a lot more money than the average person makes, or more than what this particular country says is the median income. It's interesting that I suddenly started seeing money differently. And that is that I started investing in myself rather than, buying the Chanel purse for 25,000. Things change, maybe not for everybody, but it did for me. But I needed to go through that transition. And I just like to tell that story for anybody that kind of feels like they're in that place, maybe not completely homeless, but they're in that place of feeling super stuck. Um, you know, I want to go back to that same old, like I've heard this 100 times, but it's true. Once you hit rock bottom, there's only way to go up because you're going to bounce up. You're already at the bottom, right? Okay. So sometimes I think to myself, maybe that's what it took for me to actually start taking bold action. So what's it going to take for you? So any of your listeners, I want you to think about, what's it going to take for you to actually get what you want in life?
Mm. Oh, Crystal, that's deep. That like, oh my gosh, from living in your car, published author, make well over six figures. From that to this. This is why I love podcasting so much, because I don't get to. This is what I don't see, right? Like from the outside, but when we have these intimate conversations, it all makes sense. Like why that Moxie presence is so important, and showing up for you, and being relentless, and you pretty much saying, yeah, that's never going to happen again.
Yeah.
Like that, feeling that. And you also talked about that shame. It's also the shame too. You mentioned, people feeling stuck, but people also feeling stuck in that shame of, ah, man, I can't see myself on the other side of this.
Yeah.
I just met you today, and I'm so proud of you, because
Oh,
I hear that, and it's like, man, it's so touching. But this is why, people don't understand the ripple effect that their stories actually leave in people, knowing that you went from that to this, and
mhm.
you're changing the world through your story. Like that is so inspiring. Yo, can we just clap it up real quick? Yeah. Oh man, that's awesome. Oh wow, that's awesome. So Crystal, you know something that, not just a lot of Americans, but there are a lot of people that never even hit that six figure mark. How did you get to breaking that milestone? Was it more so like a mindset switch? You mentioned you kind of went to investing in yourself versus,
Yeah,
just
I saw some things going on online, like I shared a little bit about, and then I thought, okay, so I want to sell a package. I invested in that Robert Kiyosaki weekend, and I wanted to sell a package and teach something. I realized I had kind of evaluated what skills that I had acquired with sales and marketing, and that's when I used that to create my first package. So let's do the math so that the math's mathing and it helps people see it. I like to talk numbers. And by the way, in marketing, numbers is really important and more effective to get people's attention because the brain understands numbers quickly, right? We know that it takes, we should know what it takes for us to live after paying our house payment and all, but it just helps the brain understand and lock in what a person's saying. So let's do the math. So if I wanted to make six figures, I could get there faster by having a higher priced product or program, in my case, program. So I started with a higher price. That again is relative. Some people might think high priced is $20,000, like Robert Kiyosaki and his $25,000 program. Some people, so I started with $6,000, and then I thought, well, in order to, because you got to create value for people. And so I decided to have a $6,000 program and throw in a WordPress website, which I did not know how to put up websites. I didn't know enough, but I farmed it out, meaning I found someone and I said, hey, if I bring people to you, how much would you charge me? And she gave me a number and I subtracted that from the 6,000, right? That was not going to be profit for me, was it? So I asked myself, how much is it going to cost to deliver this $6,000 product? And I ended up walking away with about $5,300 because I was doing cheap marketing. And here's what I mean by cheap marketing. I started building a list right away. Remember how I said I put the opt-in list on my Facebook? Then I would have people, this was before video, I would have people go to a page. So I created an opt-in page to put in their email. And that is who I started selling to. So I wasn't just putting up videos saying, please, I'm selling this, please buy from me. I wanted a certain type of person that wanted or could afford a $6,000 product. So I spoke the language that they would speak. So I spoke to them, and I did that using an anchor event, much like what you're doing with a podcast, but podcasts weren't a thing when I started. And so I called it an anchor event, and it was a phone number. It wasn't video. I don't think they had Zoom yet. Maybe they did. If they did, it was in the corporate world and I didn't have access to it. So I did use a little bit of Skype, but mostly I gave a phone number out, like on Facebook, and said, join me on this day. Actually, I take that back. They didn't get the phone number until they gave me their email. It was like an exchange. So on the opt-in, I was like, join me every Tuesday night, 7 p.m. I talk about money, how to make more money, and these topics around money. And that is how I started building that list. So then when they're on my list, I'd send them emails and a little link for them to get on my calendar. And then we would have face-to-face talks on Skype. And they started buying from me. That's how I hit my six figures with one product, and it was 6,000. I've had people say, not very many, but I've had a couple of people say, how could you have started out with a $6,000 product? As if I didn't know enough to add value, but I did know enough. I helped them with the 5 pages that they would need. I helped them with copywriting, how to write the words. I helped them write the 7 emails that need to be crafted in such a way to create urgency for them to buy. Those emails, 7 emails in 10 days, those are all crucial. For instance, there needs to be a PS at the end with a link. There needs to be links for them to take action. So I taught them how, call to action. I basically gave them the keys to the kingdom. Really, I gave them little steps to take. All they had to do, get on video or do what I was doing to make back their 6,000 and then some. I gave them enough to go and make 6 figures themselves or more, or maybe even $250,000 by them investing in that 6,000.
Yeah. Wow. Just the way you broke that down, the numbers, and it just all makes sense. What do they say? If you're not building a list, you're not building a business. Spot on.
True.
Spot on.
There
Crystal,
used to be, I interrupted you, but I just want to say this because it makes it funny. There used to be this little spoof on Saturday Night Live. And I can't remember who the actors were, but it was in the 90s. And they would talk about the list. So there were like these businessmen talking about the list, and it got really funny. I should find it on YouTube sometime. But even back then, they talked about the list and how, because the list is how you're going to make your money. It's not social media and all your followers. Most of them don't even know who the hell you are. Let's just be honest. Think about it. Do you know who the hell all those people are that you follow? Maybe, maybe not.
No.
Maybe a few of them. So if you look at Pareto's principle, 80-20, 80% and 20% is a percentage that falls into a lot of categories in your life, meaning in pretty much all areas of your life, 80-20 is playing a role. So 20% of your clients will make you 80% of your money. 80% of your clients are going to take, or 20% of your clients could take 80% of your time, right? Like if you were to break it all down, you would start to see that. And if you were spending, for instance, if you spent 80% of your time marketing, planting seeds, it would be blooming for you real quick. But most people don't spend 80% of their time planting seeds with good connections. And posts, I don't think on social media, even though they say it's really important, it's not always the most important thing that you should be spending your time doing. So if someone's working with me, I say, where's your opt-in? How are you? That's my dog. He's getting wild over here. How are you spending time trying to get people to opt in in exchange for their email so that you can have that face-to-face conversation?
I wanted to ask you frustrations as far as like, what's the one thing that frustrates you in your industry? I know we talked a little bit about ChatGPT before. I'll give you a quick example. On LinkedIn, everything is ChatGPT in terms of captions. So I want to talk to you like, what are the frustrations that you're seeing in your industry?
Overwhelm, breaking through, like not knowing what to do. So I just said that that was one example, actually. Like they're not sure what's working now, what's trending, where they should spend that 80% of their time. And I'm just going to say podcasting is really good because you can make good connections. People will start referring clients to you, but people have to know what it is that you do and what result. Like break it down, get down to what result do you get for people, or what do you think you can get for people, and talk about that in your marketing. So that's getting a little bit more effective right there.
Wow. Like I said a little earlier, sometimes this podcast could feel like a full-on coaching session. And I feel like, Crystal, you left this episode with literally no crumbs. Like you what did I say? You ate. You came, you delivered on all cylinders. There's some things that you said. There's some things that you said, especially when I look at this 80-20 rule. And I just think less is more, and just the way you broke it down just makes sense. And I could make 80% of my money with maybe 20 clients or something of that sort. But there's just so many different ways I could look at that and the Moxie presence. And I kind of get this from you. The second you got on the camera, you have this, I call it Moxie presence. I'm just going to call it Moxie presence, where it's like, I just feel like this aura of just, okay, just straightforward. This is what it is. It doesn't add any value. Cut it. I'm just so grateful. Like you said, there's just a lot, I make a lot of great connections through this podcast, and I'm so thankful that we had the opportunity to do this. But I got to give you your flowers. I've been doing this for almost 3 years now, And whenever I have a professional that's just vulnerable with their story, as you were today, thank you for that. But also kind of like just breaking down, like people don't understand, well, the listeners don't really understand just the value that is being shared on, I want to call this a micro show, but this is more of a smaller podcast show. But when I have someone like you of your stature, someone that's well established, accomplished so much, just being vulnerable, sharing all this information, people pay, would pay you for your time for you to break this down. And the fact that you did this today, you didn't have to do this. So I'm grateful. I just want to say thank you. For me, it doesn't go on deaf ears because I'm going to go back and look at the playback and actually take action on these things because I want to make money, and making money is cool. So
Money is cool.
really cool. It's really cool.
And,
It's awesome. It can
and
change your life.
yeah, inflation is crazy now. It's really sad when you hear some of the numbers. Like, when I think about my parents buying a house, and I remember hearing some of the numbers. I remember being like interested when we bought our second house, like how much they paid for it. And I remember hearing $45,000, and that sounded like so much more, or so much money back then. Well, that's a long time ago. And now most people that age can't afford, because they can't afford a house. So they're renting, which is fine. And that's one way to do it, but you're not really in control, although it actually can be less expensive because you think of the expenses of a house. But there are pros and cons to it. But my point is, the dollar is shrinking. It's shrunk down to like nothing, I feel like. And then inflation's gone up. So salary is not matching the cost of living. So you've got to create more income streams. I wanted to throw that in there. You've got to make more income streams, and it's going to get you not only paying your bills, but and I'm going to say put 10%, if you can, 20%, and do not touch it. Do not have a debit card. Put that in your account, and always have like a little nest egg, and then graduate up to maybe looking at annuity, an IRA, a Roth IRA, and don't even think about that money. Just let it grow. And then maybe have a certain percentage you play with a little stock market. When I say little stock market,
Yeah.
I mean like the little apps, the Robinhood, and it puts some money so that because what that will do is it'll give you a feeling. And I know that's feminine and all, but everything is a feeling. So if you have a feeling that you're okay, people will feel it in your energy, and you'll let go of that shame energy, which, by the way, if you ever looked up and Googled feelings and how feelings have an energy to it, you would see that the lowest form of energy is shame, what we had talked about earlier. And if you have that energy, you're not going to be yourself. You're not going to be who you were meant to be, because you're like, no. So look at that and ask yourself, like, what energy level what am I feeling mostly? What is my operating system in terms of feelings? And then look at that energy. You can just Google it and look and see what they all so you'll start attracting people like you. So think about that. You're attracting everyone that's like you. Okay. And has that same energy. So you don't want to attract shame. You don't want to attract poverty. So I just wanted to end with that. And it's only getting worse with the whole inflation, salary, cost of living, all of it is getting worse. But you can turn it into an advantage. And that is the good news. You can turn it into an advantage. You have more control. In the 80s, we didn't have control over very many things.
Spot on.
There weren't like a lot of ways that you could make money. We didn't have the internet. So there's that.
No, spot on. Please shout out your social media. Where can listeners and everyone follow you, keep in touch, and also where can we get a copy of your book?
On Amazon. So you can go to unleashyourmoxie.com, and it actually goes to the Amazon page to buy the book. Or you can, so I'm on Instagram at the Crystal O'Connor. I'm on YouTube, Crystal O'Connor, and LinkedIn. I love TikTok. So the Crystal O'Connor on TikTok. And here's the thing, my program, Rich, Fit, and Happy, there's a program page up We're actually going to make an opt-in for that very soon. I've been so busy with doing podcasts that it's like all day long I'm doing podcasts, which is fun. It's fun because I like to talk. Can you tell? But yeah, that opt-in is going to be important. So richfitandhappy.com and then unleashyourmoxie.com for the book.
Awesome. All right. For the listeners, like I always say, what good is information if you don't apply it? A lot was said today that you can apply to change your life for the better. Crystal, I want to thank you again for spending your time on the podcast. For the listeners, I will catch you in the next episode. This is the St. Clair Speaks Show.
Thank you.